It's that time again. It is time for our Fullmetal Alchemist Cour 3 review. We've done Cours 1 and 2. We've thrown in a Miller Lite for fun. But now, do you get the joke?
No.
Cours. Yeah. It's funny. It's not that funny. We're going to be talking about episodes 26 through 41 today of the original 2003 Fullmetal Alchemist. As a reminder, these videos are spoilerific, and we will be discussing the episodes at length. And also, welcome to Wednesday. As you can see, I'm wearing my Fullmetal Alchemist shirt, featuring my favorite characters, Edward Elric, Alphonse Elric, Colonel Mustang. Anyway, so let's talk about the very last thing that happened in Cour 2.
Yeah.
Hughes died. Hughes was murdered by his wife, kind of, a little bit. So that happened, and then this that was a pretty big closing.
Yeah.
Of that season, or whatever you want to call it, especially for the fact that there were end credits immediately after that event.
Yeah.
The very finalized section. The reason I bring that up is that the end of this Cour was like
even worse.
Well, I was going to say cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Because on the last one, it was pretty finalized. Like, he's dead and the Elrics are traveling. This one was like in the middle of a battle type thing. But let's go back to the beginning of the Cour. What happened? They got on a train.
They were like, we're gonna go find Scar and go south.
Which again is kind of weird, because they had seen Scar before, and Ed's like, wait, you gotta tell me how to make the Philosopher's Stone, and he's like, no, I'm going to ride off on this boat, and you'll have to come find me in 15 episodes, and he's like, alright. So that happens, but they get on a train because they're going to go find Scar. And Winry comes with them because she's like, oh, you're going to pass through Automail Town, where Automail runs like honey, and you can buy special Automail parts. So that happens, and they go do that. Then there's like a filler episode where like they meet a girl who has Automail, and she takes part in a strength competition, and she loses, and she's like, I gotta right my wrongs and make my adopted father proud of his Automail.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a good bit of filler in this Cour, and it's weird because it's so obvious. You know, like there's some parts that you're just like, what's happening? How does this relate to anything at all? So that happens, but the main thing that happens in Cour 3, the big like overarching thing, is Teacher Azumi and her pseudo boyfriend husband guy who runs the meat shop. Sig?
I don't know. They said his name like once or twice. Yeah,
its name's not really important. He's a big butcher guy, it's fine. So the whole thing is like the teacher is looking for the students, and they finally are found by her. She shows up and she's like, I know that you've been doing bad things, because I keep hearing that, you know, you've been doing these bad things. And they're like, teacher, we're sorry. And she's like, well, now you're gonna have to pay. I'm gonna strand you on an island like I did when you were a kid. So she takes them both out to this island.
Then we have a really heavy flashback episode.
Yeah, and that was a good episode. There's a really good episode where they're on the island as adults. They're still teenagers, but it kind of flashes back to whenever they were brought to that island. Because when Azumi took them on as apprentices, she basically said, if you can survive on this island for a month, I will teach you. And if you can't, then I guess you'll die. So there's a really cool episode where it keeps flashing back between present day, where they're teens, and, you know, a while back whenever they were 8 or 9 years old and they're on this island. And when they were on the island, they got attacked or whatever by like Azumi's friend, who was trying to like really push them to their limits and make sure that they could survive.
Also protecting them.
Yeah, and protecting them. And whenever they were, whenever they're adults, it flashes back, or when they're adults, they have this like flashback of like, oh man, that guy was chasing us, and there's something out in the woods. It must still be that guy. And when Azumi comes to pick them up, this is all finally revealed to them after all these years that, oh, actually it was just, you know, my buddy Greg who was out there in the woods like pissing you off. And they're like, oh, well, if he's here, then who's that? And then it's revealed that there's a child who's in the woods. Then there's like
a couple episodes.
There's like 2 episodes or so where they're like, who is this child? And we finally learn that the child is a homunculus. And one of the reasons Azumi is so pissed off at the Elrics is that they have made the same mistake she has made, where she tried a human transmutation. In her particular instance, it wasn't her mother, it was her child. Her child died, and she tried to bring the child back to life. And when she did, it took all of her insides out, and she has inexplicably been living without any organs. And there's one line that addresses that where the doctor's like, the other organs just picked up the slack. And I'm like, okay, let's ignore the fact that certain organs do certain things. We'll just say, yeah, the heart's been working overtime to process that meat that your boyfriend keeps producing. Anyway, so that happens. And
they find out that the homunculus's arm and leg are Ed's.
Yeah, and there's a lot of tension there where they realize the arms and legs don't go together, and Ed like chases down this creature who doesn't have a name, gets a name later, but chases it down, and then is like, actually no, it's fine. And then somehow they have to go into the office, the building, the government building, the military building, but I don't remember what the agenda was that led them to there.
They took the homunculus.
Oh, that's right. The people show up. Yeah. Armstrong is there with Archer, who is a new guy that was introduced at the beginning of Cour 3, which I forgot to mention. He's basically
looks like a straight-up vampire.
He looks like Dracula. That makes him more sinister. The paler you are, the more sinister you are. He looks like he has not been outside in years. So he and Armstrong come to town, and at one point I remember vaguely they shoot at Ed on a roof or something with a gun. And they take the homunculus, so they take it back to the base. Once they get it back to the base, Azumi's like, we have to go get that child. She doesn't know that. Maybe she knows it's a homunculus. I think she knew, but she doesn't say that. So they go to the military base, and bad things happen, and it ends up where there's like a 5-way battle between Ed, and I think Al's there, and then like the Fuhrer is there. The Fuhrer randomly shows up, and like Lust and Gluttony are there, and there's all these people there that really want this kid, and
the homunculus feed him the stone.
Yeah, well, it's important to mention that the Fuhrer is Envy.
Yeah.
And Envy takes the homunculus and gets out of there and takes it into a back room and is like, here, eat these rocks, you'll remember everything. So she feeds the rocks to the kid, and the kid's like, wait, I'm evil. I'm actually Wrath. Oops, I forgot. How silly of me. So anyway, then that's another homunculus, one of the 7 deadly sin people that exist. I don't remember how they get out of the building, but does the building collapse? Azumi starts blowing up the building? I don't know. Something happens, they leave the building, they all regroup, the homunculus is gone, they don't know what happened to it, and then I think that's when Azumi starts revealing a bit about her past, and then she's like, you should really go see my teacher. She's an old woman named Dante, and she'll teach you about, I don't know, Philosopher's Stone probably. That's all they ever want to know about, Philosopher's Stone. So Ed and Al are like, alright, and then they go up the woods to Dante's house, where they meet Dante, and then they run into Lyra, who used to help someone.
Yeah, I don't remember who she was with originally.
I don't, she keeps showing up, and I don't understand why. I'm like, who are you, and why are you important? Anyway, so they talk to Dante, and around the time they're talking to Dante, there is a group of thugs led by Greed, who is one of the homunculus, and then a bunch of chimeras.
Yeah.
And they decide that they're going to kidnap Alphonse. So they come to the house, and they kidnap Alphonse, and then Ed has to fight Greed.
And he can't do anything.
And he can't... Well, there's something that happens because they get out of the house, and when they come back, Dante's dead. I don't remember what happens in between.
Oh, they take Al, and Ed can't defeat Greed. And then they go to their little bar. And then Azumi and...
That's right. Okay, yeah. Yeah, because Dante's alive and says, Ed, maybe they went here or something.
They find it on the grounds. There was like a card.
Oh, Azumi's the one who asked Dante, and things are a little... There's a lot that happened in this series of episodes.
Take Al to the bar, and they're like, what's your secret? Because we want your secret.
Greed wants to know how his soul was transmuted to an object. That's the whole thing. So they're like, all right, well, we're just a band of misfits. We're actually not so bad. And Al falls in love-ish with Marta. Kind of. It's not love, but it's like, I want to protect you for inexplicable reasons.
And the military's trying to track them all down.
The military's looking for them. Then the military shows up just after, I think, Ed gets there. Because Ed gets there and he's like, I'm going to fight you, Greed. And Greed's like, I'm made of armor. You can't do that.
Azumi got there first.
Azumi gets there first?
Yes. And then Ed gets there. And they find out they were betrayed by Kimberly.
Yes. Oh my god,
and then the military comes in and they're like, run.
So, yeah, they have a special stash of something, and Kimberly, which is the flame alchemist, comes in, and he's with Archer, and Archer is like, you're on my side. And then Tucker's there, and Tucker's like, I'm also here. And I'm like, what the piss is happening? And then, so Azumi is like all hurt and can't fight, and that's when Ed fights Greed. And they're like fighting, and Greed's like, you can't hurt me, I have special armor, bro. And Ed's like, oh, I'll keep fighting you anyway, because I'm dumb. Then the military show up, so everyone has to run away. People run. That's whenever they get back to Dante's house. When they get back to Dante's house, Ed walks in, and Dante is dead. And, no, Greed goes there first.
Yes.
Jesus, this show. Greed gets there first. Dante is dead. And when Greed walks in, there's a transmutation circle on the floor that Lior has made, and Lior, like, stuns him and then leaves.
Yeah.
For some reason. And then Ed comes in and is like,
You killed Dante.
What happened here? And he's like, I don't know. But also, let's fight again. And Ed's like, okay. And this time, Ed can hurt him.
Because he figured out the secret.
Yeah, he figured out the secret. And then Greed is like, it's important for you to know that if the homunculus that you're fighting are near the old remains of
the body that someone tried to make.
That's when we're weak. And Ed's like, oh. And then Ed's like, I can't kill anyone. And the homunculus is like, dude, you're gonna have to kill people before this show's over, so you best stab me. And Ed's like, okay. So then he dies. And then what happens after that? Like they have to get to the next city because Azumi's like, well, you guys, good luck. And then that kind of ends the teacher arc.
Yeah, and then they're like, well, let's go to Ishbal. We gotta find Scar.
Yes.
So they start going there.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Is it between the teacher arc and the next arc where there's the comedy episode?
That's in there.
Somewhere?
Yeah.
There's a comedy episode because I think... like, the tone of the show continually, like, pushes forward. Like, you know, the first Cour was like, oh, that was a little disturbing, but overall it's okay. The second one's like, oh, stuff's getting serious. They're starting to hit on some mature themes. Alright. And then in the third thing, it's starting to ramp up, and there's, like, war, and people are dying, and there's, like, a lot of death. The opening cutscene has blood and all this stuff. So I think that they thought the tone of the show was getting so serious that they throw in this throwaway comedy filler episode. And it's really weird, because you've just dealt with all of this serious stuff, you're getting ready to go into even crazier serious stuff, and then there's this episode where they're like, that guy needs a girlfriend.
Oh wait, Warehouse 13.
There's spooky ghosts. Oh, it's just a dog burying a bone. Waka 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 waka. It was just a really... like, I think I understand why they did it, it's still dumb.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make it any less dumb. Then we get to... next... where were they stationed? They were stationed in just somewhere.
Somewhere.
There's somewhere that the military is stationed, and they were talking about how they were going to go to Lior, and they're going to go to Lior, and they're going to cause a riot or whatever. They're going to get the people there to attack the military so they can kill the people because Scar's in there and they're going to wipe everyone out. And Ed finds out about this.
Well, they go to Ishbal.
They go to...
And they find out there's nothing there. And Marta, like, brings them there. And then they find out they're being spied on by Mustang's crew.
Yeah, there's a lot
and then
that happens.
They go and they talk with Mustang and the rest of the military, including Vampire Dude. And then Mustang's like, these boys are under my jurisdiction.
And there's a lot of tiny things that we're skipping over that like probably mean a lot that I can't even remember. Like there's parts where, you know, Mustang doesn't realize that the Flame Alchemist is in with his group, and he's like, why is he here? And he's like, well, I'm now a state alchemist again, and I get to come with you, and Mustang's really opposed to it. So there's all these little tiny things that add up that there's no way I'm going to remember to talk about.
But after that, after he gets back with the military, they're like, oh, look at Lior, there's this big thing on the ground. Scar did it.
That's right.
And then he goes to Vampire Dude, he's like, hey, I'm gonna sneak in if that's okay. And he's like, yeah.
Yeah. And Ed realizes that the big circle that's around the city is a giant transmutation circle because Scar is going to, supposedly at the time, kill everyone in Lior to make a Philosopher's Stone. That's the idea. Mm-hmm. So then Ed goes into the town undercover, he talks to Scar after having a little fight, and he finds out that Scar's not planning to kill the people of Lior. He's trying to lure the military into the city, get the people out of the city, and then use the military as the souls to make the Philosopher's Stone. Which obviously Ed is also opposed to. Yeah. He's like, no, you shouldn't do that. So then, also Rose is there. Now Rose is a political figurehead of the city, and she can't talk because she's had so many terrible things happen to her from the military. She was apparently raped because she has a baby. She has a baby, and they really push that whenever they're talking about the military. And like the military's done all these terrible things, and the camera like pans to the fact that she's a kid. So Ed is starting to get his eyes open to all of these terrible tragedies and terrible things that the military has done over and over and over again, because it was just like an episode or two before that he finds out that Ishbal, like all the stuff that happened in Ishbal.
You forgot the whole part with Winry. She finds out about her parents.
Oh my god, yes! There's so much stuff that happened! Winry finds out about her parents and finds out that Colonel Mustang is the one that killed them.
Yes, so she tries to go back to Central to figure it all out. And she runs into Cheska. And they're like, we gotta figure out about Hughes and how he died.
They're trying to figure out how Hughes actually died.
So they start spying on the secretary, who we know is Sloth.
Yes.
And she figures out they're spying on her. And they try and get away, and they get away at like the last second.
Yeah.
And that's when Winry finds out, oh, Sloth was the homunculus that came from when they tried to do their mom transmutation.
Yes, Sloth looks like their mom. So, back in the city, Ed learns some stuff, sends a messenger back to Al, who has been kept at the military base for collateral so Ed doesn't go AWOL. He comes back with some information, tells Al and all of the officers about what's going down and how they should not march into Lior, because if they do, they're going to get turned into a Philosopher's Stone. Also, because we're skipping over a lot of different things, Marta had been living inside of Alphonse for a while. It's a long story. And there's a part where the Fuhrer comes out with a sword and stabs Marta, and it's revealed a little bit later that the last thing that she told Al was that the Fuhrer is a homunculus. And for a while we were like, oh, that's just Envy. But that's not Envy, because Envy was like somewhere else. So it's revealed that that homunculus is Pride, who is the 7th deadly sin homunculus, whatever. Not that that's confusing at all. So the
military knows they can't go into Lior.
Yes.
And Ed is there.
And Archer wants to go into Lior, because he doesn't know that Scar's there going to make a Philosopher's Stone out of him. So he's got all these troops, he said like 7,000 troops or something, ready to like march into the city. And then the Fuhrer, isn't it the Fuhrer who says we're not going to march in? And then there's a scene with the Fuhrer, who is Pride, talking to Gluttony and Lust, and is like, you know, we're not going to have them go into the city. And Lust is like, what are you doing? We have to get the military in there so Scar can make us the Philosopher's Stone. And he goes, well, I'm just taking orders from the big guy. And then Gluttony's like, oh God! And Lust is like,
screw this.
And then she decides that Pride is a traitor and she leaves. But we keep hearing like whispers every once in a while about the fact that there's this, figurehead for the homunculi. But we have not seen them. We do not know who they are. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
But on the final episode here, basically what happened was there was a fight between...
The town's trying to get out because they think the military's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And Ed is strong-armed into helping that.
Yes.
For them to escape. And then Wrath and Sloth show up, and he's like, oh my God, Mom.
Yeah, they're trying to get all the civilians out of the town. The Archer wants to bring the military into the town. And then the Flame Alchemist and Scar are having a fight because it was revealed in a few episodes ago, because we never talked about that the reason Scar is called Scar and he got the scars was from the Flame Alchemist.
And the Flame Alchemist was sent into the city by the Fuhrer.
Yes. Which is Pride.
Yes.
And then the episode ends with the Flame Alchemist, like, he's got a huge hole in himself, a la Kung Pao, and he's grabbing onto Alphonse and he's about to turn him into a bomb. And then also Ed is, like, fighting 2 of the homunculi in the sewer.
Because, like, Wrath was going to kill Rose and the baby.
Yeah, things got really crazy, and, like, you can still follow it. It's just wild to me that the amount of episodes that were covered is, like, 15 episodes. So 15 episodes make up this core. Of the 15 episodes, at least 5 are filler. Because one of them is the joke episode. There's a few episodes where nothing happens. There's an episode where...
Ed now have a fight in this town.
Yeah, there's an episode where they have a fight, and then it's just like, oh, remember when we had a fight when we were kids? Yeah, that was it. That's the entire episode. There's an episode where they meet a girl on the road who reveals that she liked this guy, and this guy knew Lust. And, like, that kind of feels like it could be important, but then he dies, and it was all just, like, a big throwaway. At least I think. So that was, nothing happened there. And then the other episode that we talked about was filler.
Yeah.
I forget which one that was.
That was the automail one.
Yeah, the automail one, where the girl is running through the city and Ed's got to chase her, but not use alchemy, but use alchemy to save her when she goes to fall off of the house. It's just, knowing that probably only 10 of those episodes were, things were actually happening, it's incredible how much happened and how serious the show is getting. It's so weird because, so many other shows, they establish at the beginning what the show's going to be like, and then you've got this tone that's been set, and this show hasn't done that. It started out, started to come up, and then the second core was like, oh God, and now the third one's like, yeah. And it makes me wonder, there's 10 episodes of the show left. That's how many episodes are left in this 2003 Fullmetal Alchemist show. And I'm really curious now, what happens?
What happens next?
And also, how is there only 10, how is there 10 episodes left? Because it feels like there could only be a few. Like, everything's coming to a head now.
Yeah.
Anyway, how did you feel about this core compared to the other 2?
I don't know. I liked it, and I thought the joke episode was kind of fun.
I mean, I didn't dislike that.
Yeah.
I didn't dislike it. It was just, when you start an episode, you don't know what you're in for. You don't know if it's filler. You don't know if it's that. And when that started, I was like, what? And it was a few minutes in before I was like, nothing's going to happen this episode. This is just, we're so wacky. We apologize. The show's been so serious. Please hold on. It's going to get worse. But overall, the show has been good. I've thoroughly enjoyed the show. This last core was, like, I don't think it was the best, but it's kind of hard to compare them.
Yeah.
And the tone of each one is so wildly different from the other ones. I really enjoyed all of the stuff with the teacher. I enjoyed the stuff with Wrath. And then obviously there has been much more, like tenfold more information related to the characters in the universe and like how the things work in this last 15 episodes than the first 30.
Yeah.
Like there's so much being revealed. Obviously obvious things like Scar's past, but then also like how the homunculi are formed. They are formed when there's been a failed human transmutation. Like all this stuff is starting to be revealed, and there's been a lot of episodes and a lot of moments in episodes where things will happen and I'll be like, oh, okay. So it's been good. I'm excited to see what happens in this last little bit. There's not much of the show left. I mean, obviously we'll watch Brotherhood also, but you know, it's been great seeing what happens, and I'm curious to see what happens in these last 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to discuss Fullmetal Alchemist 2003 version down below, all the way up to episode 41, but not past that because we haven't watched that far yet. As a reminder, we are going to be going out of town on Sunday, and as such, we don't have enough time to watch the remaining Cour. So we're just not going to start it yet. We're going to wait till we get back, because I don't want to start it, get in the middle of it, and then just, you know, I have to wait. So we won't get around to doing the final review for a bit, but eventually we'll get to it, and I'm excited to. As soon as we get back, I want to start watching them and do it, because it's I got to know how the show ends. You know, everything's coming to a head, and I got to know how it's all resolved. Thanks for watching, and as always, let's meet back tomorrow, shall we?